To make sure you're all in the right place, this is the meeting of the America 250 Commission, otherwise known as the Semi-Quincentennial Commission, commissioned by the governor, and we are at the Manchester History Center for our quarterly meeting. And first, let me just say, what an amazing space. I have not been here before, but it reminds me very much that Connecticut played an outsized role, not just in the Revolutionary period, but also the industrial period. Cheney Mills is very famous around the state, and the Cheney family, I guess, has been very generous in donating much of what you see as space. So thank you for hosting us at Manchester History Center. This is, as I say, the quarterly meeting. My name is Denise Merrill. I'm the former Secretary of the State of Connecticut, and I chair this commission. And I introduce my colleague, Jason Mancini, who is the Vice Chair of this commission. And today we will go through the agenda. There's much going on. Finally, we are getting close to the actual time. We've been meeting for several years now, trying to lay the groundwork for the commemoration that will happen on July 4th, 2026, commemorate the birth of the country, we like to say, with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And it seems like the right moment to be commemorating such a thing. And Connecticut, I think, will stand out for the way we've approached this, in the way we have adhered to the principles and ideals of the founding documents, and try to remember that everyone has a story to tell about how they belong to America. So with that, I will turn this over. Well, no, first I have to do an approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was April 16th, 2025. It should be included in your packet somewhere. And if there are any corrections or other comments on the former minutes, if not, I guess we have to have an approval. So
Move
can I
move to accept the minutes?
Thanks. Second. Okay, thank you very much. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
All right.
All right, any abstentions, nays? Okay, so the minutes are approved. And now we will go forward with the agenda, where we're going to have several updates on activities that are going on. And let me say, first of all, there's a lot going on, particularly at the local level. Many towns and cities are already engaged in many activities. We have been supporting them, and the Humanities Council, the administrators of this commission, have been, donating or granting funds to some of the towns to get these activities going. So it's very exciting. I've been to some of these events and commemorations and exhibits and things going on. So I'm happy to, we'll have a report on all this later, but that is very gratifying, and I thought you should all know that. So, Jason.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, so we are 50-ish weeks away from the moment. I think there's been a lot more attention drawn to the 250th in the last weeks. We have more information and understanding of what's going on at the national level. One of the things I do want to just sort of address at the top is in the midst of this awareness, there's been a lot of press, there's been some contentiousness around how it's being handled on a federal level, in state, and so on, with military parades and National Statue Gardens sort of making news. Be that as it may, things are happening on a federal level, but we have sort of set a different tone in Connecticut. And I just want to remind everybody who has different ideas and understandings and feelings about this moment that we at Connecticut Humanities, and in part through the work of the commission, are nonpartisan. And we have to adhere in many ways to the guiding values that we set forth as a commission in the very early days of our work, as we established a group and a focus that would be inclusive and that would be prioritizing access for all of Connecticut. And I just want to remind people, both in the room, online, and anybody we interact with, that these are our goals, and we have to remember that. We may not agree with it personally, but this is the work of a group of people who've come together across differences, whatever they might be. And I want to just remember and remind everybody that we have to model that for the state. That, I think, is our responsibility. in our sort of, in reflecting on all of this, we have not set forth mandates in any way from the commission. A lot of our work has been suggestive around our core themes. And we encourage municipalities and anybody who undertakes this work to really reflect on that. And, we are here for guidance and support. But the spirit of inclusion and access is really what I think is important in all of our work together, so that all of Connecticut is represented and reflected. So I'll leave it there. If anybody wants to touch on that a little bit more, we certainly can. Otherwise, happy to hand it off to Cindy for further updates.
So we participate in monthly calls, and by we, Rachel and I participate in monthly calls with both the White House Task Force 250 and the America 250 Commission. Their call, formerly they were separate calls. It's now one joint call with both of these organizations. And they've been keeping us informed of some of the national initiatives that their two groups are jointly taking on. And we're sharing that information with affiliates and other people here in Connecticut so that they're aware. One of the more recent initiatives that they have announced is an initiative around state fairs across the country. That was announced on July 3rd, and the White House Task Force has reached out via the USDA to all of the state Department of Agriculture's, and that has gone to the governor's office, and they are working on what that will look like. We anticipate that there will be other initiatives announced in a similar fashion. Many state commissions are coming together to ask that state commissions are also kept in the loop as these are announced, just so that there can be coordination between these national efforts and the state efforts that are already existing. But we should hear more next month at the July convening of states in Washington, D.C. And by next month, I mean a week and a half from now. July has flown by. I still think it's July 5th right now, and it's not. So that Rachel and Jason will be attending that convening of states to hear from other state commissions, hear from the National Commission, and share what we're doing here in Connecticut with other states. There is also an America Waves initiative, which is a flag traveling both to international American cemeteries overseas and every state, a military cemetery in every state. We do not yet know when that will be coming to Connecticut, but we anticipate hearing at some point with the date that will be asked to participate in. They have also released a Story of America video series in partnership with, do you remember the name of the university? I didn't write it down. No, yeah, it does. Sorry, everyone. But all of this is at america250.org. What was that?
Did you say H?
It starts with an H.
Hillsdale.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So there is also similarly a Founders Museum at the Eisenhower Executive Office, and they are releasing print-on-demand materials for that exhibit. And it's mostly portraits of presidents, first ladies, and a few other notable Americans that they have shared, and some short bios for them. So that's available as a print-on-demand service. We will continue to share out any information that we receive and make that available, but they are also sharing it via both the White House Task Force 250 website and the America 250 website, which are both linked in the online agenda for anybody watching remotely. So some other national initiatives that have been started by some of the other state commissions that we've been asked to participate in. There are 3 larger scale ones that we wanted to get feedback from the commission if we want to promote these. One is hearkening back to a law from the 1960s to ring a bell 13 times on the 4th of July. I believe it's at 2 p.m. Yeah. And so some of the state commissions are looking to kind of revive that old tradition. Yeah, so on the 4th of July, 2 p.m. around the country have bells ringing. So we're happy to share that with affiliates, with local committees. I think there's back and forth on whether they want to change the time so that all over the country it's the same time, to incorporate the time changes with Alaska and Hawaii, or whether it's just 2 p.m. local time for everybody to make it easier. So I think, does anybody have any questions, concerns about sharing that out with folks? Another one that I think we mentioned at the last commission meeting is America's Potluck. They continue to release information about that. And it is really a grassroots effort to host potlucks around the country on July 5th. So it's been started by Utah's 250th Commission and is an effort to bring back shared Sunday dinners. So the 5th of July is a Sunday, and a way for people around the country to come together around food, so on and so forth. Does anyone have any questions about that?
First I've heard of that. I guess there's a connection. Is there going to be a menu?
So,
Just I guess potlucks by nature don't have menus.
and that might be why they're going
Right.
with potluck. But
An opportunity for us to work with the Restaurant Association to begin bringing some of that
Yeah.
cuisine to the public in a different way, a
Right.
more interesting way. Certainly reflective of Connecticut's history.
We've done the election cake thing in the last few years, which I think has been very successful, actually. So we might include election cake in the menu. I mean, just an idea, because Connecticut had the first election cake, as I recall. And it was almost the size of this room, apparently. They used to make a giant cake and everybody would come for miles and everybody got a piece of the cake. How they baked it, I'm not sure, but yeah.
Selfishly, can we make it chocolate?
Anyway, I think that's kind of an interesting idea. I think we should probably participate in something like that, especially if it's a national effort. I mean, it's coming from one of the states.
I think many of these states were inspired by Two Lights for Tomorrow and how excited people across the country got. And so these ideas have kind of started to come out since then, and been promoted among the different state commissions. And then the last national initiative that we've had brought up to us is, I believe it's called the Freedom of America. But it has been started by the Hawaii State Commission to do readings of the Declaration of Independence across the state on July 8th, which is the date that the original declaration was read in many of the original 13 colonies. We have partnered in the past with the Beinecke Library on their reading of the Declaration of Independence, along with some other declarations from throughout American history. There's What to the Slave is the 4th of July, the Declaration of the Rights of Women, and then to put a more Connecticut spin on it, they've also read from the runaway slave narrative of William Grimes. And so we would like to participate in this and include some of these other readings as inspiration for people who might want to bring in other texts as well, as a way to really round out what these different terms of freedom are and make it more of a longer event that people can participate in. We've spoken with the Beinecke about their willingness to kind of share their template with folks, and they're willing to do that. So I think if everyone is okay with taking that approach, any questions about any of the above?
Speak for the state library. They have a very cool copy of the declaration that it might be amazing to try to incorporate into this.
Oh,
The one that was originally read in Connecticut.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
It will be in our exhibit on July 5th, but I think we can figure out something.
Oh, I meant like a digitized copy.
We have a digitized copy.
I'm not.
I'll bring it.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just borrow it for a couple of weeks. I'll get it back to you.
Exactly, it'll be fun. The insurance will love us.
I think I should comment here that I participated in the event, I think it was just last year. And the Declaration of Independence has a lot of stuff in there that's pretty radical and just really a list of grievances. And so the part that everybody knows about, which is the first paragraph, it goes on and on.
Are we back online?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's all right. Ugh.
In the spirit in which we approach things generally of sort of inviting participation rather than, I wonder if there's like a list of invitations to, read your most important American, what your defining American document, and invite interesting, relevant people, groups, organizations, whomever, we have to figure out the right list, but, BYOFD, bring your own founding document or something.
Oh, that's a great idea.
But it would be interesting. I think then part of the interest would be what people, rather than what list we curated, what people chose.
Mhm.
And then there may be some spin-offs for that. There's an easy social media. Why did you read a piece of this? Why did you choose it?
Right.
It's a radio thing. It's a TV thing. I mean, I just think there may be a relatively inexpensive but quite interesting program that we could put together out of that. And it need not all happen at the same time either. That could be a series that unfolds for a time.
I feel like it's a really good way to kind of just engage a bunch of people, especially because it kind of gives that nod back to that initial time when it was read to the 13 colonies. I think it's a cool way of kind of modernizing that in a way. It gives a nod back to our history and kind of like recognizes that, but it also kind of ties in like our more modernized idea of these things and kind of just brings that to light. So.
If you want to share about that Northeast Regional
Yeah.
Gathering.
So just quickly, the Northeast Regional Group is basically comprised of the New England states. It seems that they've been meeting annually. We met back in June. I know a lot of you were busy with other things. I went with Natalie Bellinger from the Connecticut Museum and kind of represented Connecticut there. It's a really nice way to meet with others who are doing similar work. So this was held in Newport, Rhode Island, and they brought in, some speakers as the host to kind of show what they're doing in Rhode Island. I think a couple of the key takeaways, one being that there's a real desire to work more collaboratively between the states, across the states. So if anybody is interested or has nothing specific was really brought up in terms of suggestions, but if anybody, is interested in working with other states on projects, and this could even be, beyond next year, many of these states commissions are their planning activities for beyond 2026. So I think Cindy, you probably have contact information for that group. And the other thing, just talking about kind of what's resonating with people, and it really is like stories and kind of focusing on the nostalgia aspect of the 250th, and that's led to a lot of success in fundraising for groups, and also just kind of what seems to be resonating with people as well.
I'll just add to that in addition to New England, it's also New York and Quebec. We've got a couple representatives from Canada. There's a story there and I can't remember it off the top of my head.
I'm looking for a host for next year still. Ideally, a state or area that has not hosted, which Connecticut is a state that has not yet hosted.
Can I ask, Ariane, were these all the commissions from the different states or others involved? I mean, what was the group exactly?
Also others. I mean, most of the people there were, on commissions of their states and able to kind of report out on that, but it was also other representatives.
Who sponsored the event exactly? Do you know?
I'm not sure how that works. I mean, Rhode Island was the host, but I don't know.
The host kind of handles all of the above. So the host really sponsors it. I'll say 2 years ago, it was at Fort Ticonderoga. Last year, it was at Saratoga. I'll say the last 2 years, it has conflicted with the Leagues Conference, which has been a bit challenging for a lot of Connecticut folks. And then this year it was Newport. So it's hosted by the host organization. I think Newport partnered with Newport Historical Society and some other people that they have worked with. And I say Newport, it was the Rhode Island Secretary of the State,
Okay.
because their commission is run out of the Secretary of the State's office. So they partnered with Newport Historical and some other organizations.
And was it tied to a specific historic event, like the Ticonderoga was all about the battle and the march and all that? And I don't know about Saratoga also was around an event, wasn't it?
No, neither of them were actually around events, because Ticonderoga was, I think, 3 years before. Yeah, because this year was the anniversary of the yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the question is, are we interested in offering to host for Connecticut? I think we could probably find a museum or other place that would have the space to kind of help host. It ends up being about 100 people. At least that was what the first couple were.
Yeah, this one was much fewer, I would say, maybe more like 50 or so. They have a couple hours of programming where they bring in the speakers, some networking, and then some other events that you could choose to do or not kind of around in the immediate area.
What's going to be involved in terms of costs, prep? It's going to be early June, I'm assuming. Is that going to
For
find
some
us up
time
in
in
any
June.
other way?
Yeah, and I think they're looking for a host now, so we can start to have conversations around the time of year. Something tells me it might be better to do in May next year than June. I think the further removed from July 4th, the happier most people will be. I think costs, it will really depend on who we can get to host us. Will they let us have a space for free? So on and so forth. And then really, most people cover most of their costs themselves. The only thing I think they provided this past year and probably the year before was a lunch. So if I think it's mostly covering the cost of lunch and then providing suggestions for other things to do. There's usually suggested hotels to stay at, other sites to see while you're in the area. Some people make a couple of days out of it. So
Like a suggested self-guided tour of certain areas. I think the lunch really is the main, aside from the space and any audio visual needs.
How about New London? It'd be a good
Could be.
place, so,
It could be. I guess I would just sort of
yeah.
push it a little bit back on you and Rachel, like, is this doable
Yeah.
with staff capacity?
think so. Jonah is kind of heading up this group. He is on the Vermont 250th Commission and is very passionate about getting the states together and working together. Particularly passionate about the Green Mountain Boys. So he looks fondly on Connecticut. So all that to say, he's done the vast majority of the planning. It's really just kind of pulling together the day of. And I think with a year and maybe a couple of volunteers on the commission, we could pretty easily pull it together. If we think that the time is worth kind of trying to showcase Connecticut and pull this group of folks here. I think it's a good way to get visibility. I'm not sure. I have not heard anybody volunteering excited to plan this for next year. So
Especially being in 2026, it's kind of, they're looking at it as being, a substantial, important meeting.
yeah, and I think our benefit is that we are not planning as many large scale events as some of the other state commissions are, which makes it much easier for us to take on something this scale as opposed to Massachusetts that's doing tons of big statewide events that they're managing.
So an opportunity, I know it's only a day or so, but is there an opportunity to engage local commissions? I mean, if we do it in Groton, New London, that's one thing, but whatever we can radiate out from for a visit to Norwich or
Right.
Lebanon.
There's definitely some opportunities there. I'll say the first one I attended had a lot more local folks from New York participating. So I think we can invite people to engage with other states. I'll say that this group did a passing of a battle horn replica for Fort Ticonderoga, and they started it in Hartford. They worked with the Salisbury local committee to do something in Salisbury and then kind of moved it up through the Berkshires into Vermont. And then across to the anniversary of Fort Ticonderoga. This was late April, early May of this past year. So there are ties between Connecticut and some of the stories in other states. So I think it's a great opportunity for local committees to engage and think about where those connections might be, especially as more anniversaries pop up moving forward.
It seems like there's a reason to at least move forward with this idea.
If they're tied to that first Monday in June kind of date, I'm just pointing out, I'm just trying to think about possible synergies. So the other organization that also meets on that same date, but as a rule, is the Mass History Alliance. And I'm sure many of those people are also kind of interested in 250th things. So, my suggestion would either be to move it away from that or maybe you wanna, I mean, I've been meaning to talk to the Mass History Alliance folks myself and be like, hey, let's not hold our conferences on the same day so that we can like go to one another's conferences maybe, or do a joint conference. You know, so if there's an appetite for combining some of those events and turning into a regional event that's kind of focused on the 250th, that's something we could think about. Just a pie in the sky idea off the top of my head right now.
So we'll take all of these ideas, talk to Jonah and see. I'm most curious to see, is there an appetite to move this to the spring?
Yeah.
In which case it gives us more time to plan post-spring. Or if not, I like the idea of tying it to kind of more regional history work being done, so.
I think the issue there is that this has been kind of like a low cost fund yourself event. Our conference is our big money maker of the year. So, you know, and I'm sure it's the same way for a Mass History Alliance. So I think that would be the potential tension.
Yeah. What is the date of yours for 26?
The rule is the first Monday in June.
First
So probably the first or the third, I don't know, whatever, whichever of those move and.
Okay, well, we'll continue thinking about that. Seems like a good idea. I'd love to see Connecticut do something like that because it would give us a lot more visibility, I think. And by then there will be, I still like the idea of tying it to some historic event in Connecticut, and there were plenty that we could draw on for that. So let's, and as for the national and other national initiatives, I don't think we really need to actually just vote to go forward. I think we'll just keep exploring and keep everybody informed as to what they are. We still have time to decide if we're going to do, for example, the America's Potluck at July 5th, but it does take some organization, you know, at least communication with local commissions, for example. So, but we have a very solid network now of the local commissions, which I hope we're going to talk about later. Yes.
Cindy, let's make a point of reaching out to Scott Dolch from the Restaurant Association
Yeah.
for the potluck and just see if there's something
Yeah.
we can pull together for Connecticut.
Good idea. Okay, well, now we're going to move on to the funding update, which, as I'm sure all of you know, there's been a lot of discussion about funding, both here in Connecticut and nationally. And now we have the big, beautiful bill has passed. And the Connecticut state budget. So we can report back on what actually happened. And the only thing I was really involved in was getting at least some administrative money set aside for this commission. And I'm happy to report that those dollars are still there. So we will still have the administrative support for the commission through the Humanities Council. And but aside from that, this year we did not have a specific request for the commission, but it was wrapped up more in funding for the Humanities Council and other arts and culture organizations. Great deal of lobbying went on, and I'll let Jason talk about that since he was so intimately involved in all that. So.
Yeah, I don't want to preempt my subsequent comments here, but I will just mention that we do continue to prioritize through our granting 250th based projects. Becky will provide an update. Becky from our staff in grants will provide a update on that. And just as a reminder to everybody, we have an ongoing list of funded projects on the website, so you can see what we've funded so far. With that in mind, we continue to pursue corporate and foundation funding. We've recently secured $15,000 from Travelers to contribute towards a lending library for our statewide exhibition proposal. We are working with the Tourism Marketing Office and CT Visit to build broader awareness and sponsorships through their platform to get funding for the work that we're doing. And then we continue to seek funding for the 250th Trail, a statewide exhibition that will build out of some of the other projects we've funded, as well as various educational programs and field trips. So it's very much front and center. I think as we're building more awareness now in this sort of final year, money's always really nice when you have it far in advance. It just hasn't been on the front page for a lot of people. But now that it's here, we're less than a year we're hoping that there will be deeper investment. We have been having some good conversations with folks. So we look forward to having more. If anybody knows folks who might want to support, sponsor, introduce to us, please do that. I look forward to building a relationship.
Rob is not here, or is he? Are you online, Rob?
Yes,
Great. Can you update us on the federal efforts to get funding for the 250th federally?
sure. Since the last time the commission met, I've been working pretty closely with John Dichtel from the American Association for State and Local History and our lobbyist in Washington. We circulated a letter in Congress that was signed by 4 members of Congress, John Larson, Jen Kiggins from Virginia, members of the House and the Senate included Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire and Senator Kramer from North Dakota. We had 76 members of Congress signed the letter, and the letter basically said 250th is coming, the federal government should support it, and it could support it through the IMLS or the state commissions. Since that time, the bill that was recently passed includes $150 million for America 250. The fact that Senator Kramer signed the letter, I think is important because he's the senator from North Dakota, and the $150 million is going to the Secretary or to the Department of the Interior, and Secretary of the Interior is Burgum, who is also former governor of North Dakota. So we've been working with Chief of Staff in Kramer's office and offered the contact information for all the commissions with AASLH's help, and are pivoting away from IMLS for obvious reasons and leaning into state commissions. I admit it's a little bit of a Hail Mary at this point, but it's the last thing I think that we could do to try to steer some of the $150 million that's in the budget toward the individual state commissions. We're waiting to hear from Kramer's office. His chief of staff was enthusiastic about having funding go to the state commissions, but that certainly doesn't mean that it's going to happen. ASLH has prepared a list of about 1,200 organizations that are included in the districts where the Republicans that signed the letter represent. And so the plan would be to get those 1,200 organizations to contact their elected officials and lobby on behalf of some of the $150 million going to state commissions. So we've been in contact with our lobbyist earlier today, and with all the activity that's going on in the on Capitol Hill right now, we're going to wait till some of the voting subsides today, and then she's going to reach back out to Kramer's chief of staff to see exactly where things stand.
Great. Thank Rob, and thanks for all your efforts on this and working with that national group. I think it's been very important, and yeah, at least there was something that was preserved. I guess we'll wait to see what happens next on that front. And maybe we'll get some dollars in from that 150 million that you're working on. So, okay, any questions for Rob? Okay, thank you again, Rob. Thanks for all that. Give 250 Connecticut was an effort that we started to try to do, I guess what's called a crowdfunding source of funds. And so Cindy, why don't you tell us how that went?
Yeah, so we raised over 22,000 from 187 donors for 12 municipalities who chose to participate. For us, we see it as a good run, almost as training wheels for staff and municipalities to participate. Now that we have some better understandings on what support is needed to make this happen and what the limitations are of the software, we're looking at launching a much bigger giving period in the fall for local committees and affiliate organizations to participate. This was a limited run with kind of a maximum of 100 participants. I think in the fall, we're going to be looking at anywhere up to 200, 250 different organizations participating. It is restricted to 501c3s or local municipalities. We did have some 501c4s who wanted to participate, but because of the tax deductible nature of these dollars, it has to be either a municipality or a 501c3. So that is one of the hiccups. We are ironing out some issues that came up with contracts with municipalities, and planning to release those in the next month or so that there is plenty of time to get through the municipal process. And then we see the success of this as a way to build just general public goodwill and awareness for the 250th and the work that is being done at a local level. We did receive some press coverage from, in particular, WFSB, but also some pickups from other smaller news print news media and digital news media. So we're hoping that those initial blips of coverage will evolve into something bigger in the fall, especially with more people participating and more people aware of the work being done locally. So we're looking forward to that and hoping that in so doing, we can support efforts across the state.
Okay, thanks. Any questions about that? Did you all hear about it? See, for me, a lot of our issues are around what it takes to communicate these things local, down to the local level. I mean, we have our list, obviously, but we're pretty reliant on local commissions to get the word out about these sorts of things. We do have a substantial network by now, which is very heartening. But we need to make sure that we're using them to get word out on these various efforts that we're trying to mount. So
Can you talk about Portland and West Hartford in particular? In terms of
So
how they engage?
West Hartford were two of the municipalities who were most successful through this. I think West Hartford really launched and initially seemed like they were going to take it away. Portland got competitive and got really involved in trying to get the word out and had tons of donations coming in, particularly as we got closer and closer to the deadline. So it became this, they were determined to do better than West Hartford. And then I think they were determined to hit a larger number. But at the end of the day, it was most successful in the municipalities that used it to really get the word out, share broadly, and get that competitiveness running, which is the way these types of events do generally work. The more competitive you are, the more you get people to pay attention to you and kind of, so I think we are hoping to perhaps engage Portland to kind of help say, this is what worked for us, this is how you can adapt it. And kind of use that as an opportunity for others to learn from their success.
absolutely highlight them maybe on the next call. How often are you having calls with the community groups now?
Generally monthly. We are skipping this month because of vacations and just other travels, but otherwise monthly. Affiliates meet quarterly. We have a few more touch points with them in other ways. But quarterly seems to work for that group. Local committees, there's so many of them coming on and off and kind of changing leadership that it's helpful to have more frequent connections.
We're planning to get a press release out about this to sort of build the broader awareness and success, and also to build sponsorships because we secured 3 or 4 sponsorships.
Yeah, we had 3 or 4 prize sponsors that the funds for those prizes kind of came into Connecticut Humanities and went right back out to the municipalities. The winners were Portland for raising the most dollars, West Hartford for raising the second most. We also had a restriction that each municipality could only win 1 prize so that nobody took away all of them. Kent for having the most unique donors, which ended up being the 3rd most. And then Stonington got a prize for getting the closest to the 250th gift. So the prizes were $500, $1,000, and $1,500. So it was really an opportunity to kind of push donor dollars into local communities. So in the fall, we're hoping to have a lot more prizes because we're hoping to have a lot more competition for those prizes. And see this as a great way to get funds out. We're also looking for sponsors of the event in general. And that will help defray our costs because the software itself is particularly expensive. And those are more sponsors in terms of publicity for them. They'll kind of be front and center.
Yeah, this would be a great follow-up. WFSB in particular has been very interested in what we're doing. And we did an interview with them at the Weathersfield Historical Society, and it was about this program. So it'd be good to follow up with them. I bet they'd do a follow-up with those local folks and talk about how they raise the funds and the prizes and all that. That's the kind of thing I think that, is it Eric? Eric, what's his name? The newscaster would be interested in. Yeah. Okay, anybody else? All right, we're gonna move on to Mandy's council update.
Yes, so I think in our last meeting, I had announced we had just been doged. So we'd lost significant funding through terminations, about $1 million, just over $1 million. Since then, we've been making all sorts of adjustments to that. We've been able to secure some funding back from NEH. Now that the big beautiful bill is passed, Congress is now negotiating what that all looks like for the interior. And there are signs now that the House, so just as a reminder, President Trump proposed shuttering the agencies, NEH, NEA, and so on, with $40 million to close the agency. The House just voted this week to advance with $135 million for NEH and NEA each. So there's a sign that the agencies will continue to operate. Many of the departments have shuttered, and 80% of staff has been laid off, but among the departments that are still there are the Fed-State partnership, and that is where we get our funding. So there's a suggestion preliminarily that that funding line may come back on. The Senate tends to come in when they negotiate this bill for these funds. They tend to come in a little bit higher. So we'll see where it all lands, but I will hold out some degree of optimism despite sort of countervailing forces in the universe that we will hopefully see some restoration of funds as we move forward. Regardless of that, we do have state funds, as I mentioned earlier, and we will continue to prioritize funding for 250th-based projects. And with that, I'll hand it off to Becky to provide an update on our last round of CTH grant awards and the 250th related projects.
Hi, everyone. So we've had two different deadlines since your last meeting. We had quick grants, which are small awards up to $4,999. There were 3 that were America 250 related, and we had our planning and implementation grants. There were 10 of those, 8 implementation and 2 planning, for a total of 13 awards in the last couple of months that are America 250 related, for a total of $207,726 in awards that went out for America 250 projects. Some of the highlights: the Fairfield University Art Museum is doing an exhibition focusing on depictions of the American flag from the early 20th century to today. It ranges from expressions of patriotism to critiques of who the flag represents. The Connecticut Heritage Foundation, which is for an exhibit by the Museum of Connecticut History, is commemorating Connecticut's role in the American Revolution, illustrating how residents of Connecticut impacted and were impacted by the revolutionary forces. The Greenwich Historical Society has got a planning grant for an exhibition. that will open next spring. The funds will support a guest curator and humanities scholars to create an object checklist and exhibition outline to help with that, building that exhibit. And one of the quick grants is with the Ridgefield Library. They're basically going to have a series of community conversations around the Declaration of Independence, sort of like a community read around the Declaration of Independence and what it means.
Becky. And folks who want to explore more, again, they're listed on the website with a little bit more detail. But that was a great sort of highlights reel.
Okay. No further questions about any of that. We'll move on to recaps and upcoming plans. First, we have 2 lights for tomorrow. Rachel?
So it's kind of hard to believe that the last time we met 2 Lights for Tomorrow hadn't happened yet because it feels a really long time ago at this point.
Right.
But it ended up being really successful. For those that didn't know, or if you needed a reminder, it was a nationwide effort. It was led by some folks from originally, I think, the Wisconsin Commission, and then we moved to Virginia. So it was organized by states. Almost every single state participated. Their map, I think the only state that I didn't see highlighted on there was New Mexico. So really almost every single state participated in this. So there was a lot of attention nationwide, not just here. Here we had 90 known participants who lit 2 lights on April 18th. I know that there were more, but that's just the number that submitted our form. So 90 known light participants. There was also 20 service projects, or at least 20 service projects, mostly spring cleanup type things, or food drives at organizations. So there was a lot of that going around as well. And then there was at least 5 actual events where people got together and did a ceremony to kind of kick this off. So that was the kind of what happened in Connecticut. On our website, we do have a gallery of photos that were sent to us, a gallery of media coverage that we received, and that's linked on the agenda. So if you're online or here, you can click on that link on the agenda. It takes you right to that page and you can see all the pictures from that. But it ended up being really successful and got us some good attention, and for a good reason.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Any questions for Rachel? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Moving on, the White Oak Tree Working Group. Okay, this is something that I guess I launched after hearing what was done in, I guess it was 1976. The last presentation we had at our last meeting mentioned the idea that in 1976, every town, I think, probably every town, planted a tree in commemoration of the event. So I thought that seemed like something that would resonate with local people. So I asked Tom Scanlon from the governor's office to help me on this. And Tom has really taken it on. We have a working group that's thinking about this, and we've collaborated with a number of organizations who can let us know how we could make this happen. It started with an idea about the charter oak tree as a symbol of government and democracy, and it has kind of morphed into some other things. So Tom, let us know where we are.
Thank you, Denise.
Yeah,
So as Denise explained, we're looking forward to launching this sort of tree planting project focused around the charter oak, white oak specifically. As many of you know, the white oak is Connecticut's state tree. So as Denise mentioned, we're going to be partnering with sort of 2, it seems, organizations in particular, the Extension School at UConn for Professor Tom Worthley, and then Dr. Jason White at the Connecticut Agriculture Experiment Station. So we had our sort of preliminary planning meeting about this earlier this month on Wednesday, July 2nd. A couple of commissioners attended, Deborah and Amherst in particular. Thank you for making time. So we are still working on taking some of the ideas from that meeting and sort of giving them a little bit of shape. So we want to make sure that whatever we plan in regard to this particular project is going to be successful. So we've covered a few different ideas. I think, mainly, particularly given some of the restrictions around cost and funding, we're looking for this to sort of be a lower cost effort that will allow people to participate fully in the commission through planting trees. So I think one of the things in particular that we're working on sort of figuring out is, will it be better to sort of take acorns and bring them to seed, or will it be better to, buy sort of require white oak trees, saplings that have already been sort of fully formed. And, I think one of the other ideas that we had too, which we're working on sort of, figuring out how to best implement is how to engage technical schools on how they participate in this sort of project. One of the more interesting things that Professor Wordley shared with us during this planning meeting a couple of weeks ago is that Connecticut actually has a state sawmill, which is based in Portland, which was not something that I think any of us knew prior to that meeting. So we're still sort of in the relative nascency of really planning things. But we wanted to take this sort of moment to share with the commission our idea and sort of tell you about it, and then hopefully show you at our next meeting a little bit more what we're going to be doing with it. So, Denise, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a few things that I would add. The other thing, we're trying to find ways to connect with local towns around this effort. Obviously, we will need their help to make this happen. And it could happen a little differently in each town, but we talked about having it be a school project. And I've talked to Steve Armstrong, and he's going to get involved with this group too, probably at the elementary school level, because this is the kind of thing that I think younger children would really get involved with. And so we hope to develop a little educational packet to go to the local towns to explain about the white oak tree, about the charter oak tree, and about what they can do to, place one of these trees in their town. And the other thing I learned is that every town has a forester. Who knew, right? I didn't know that. But so that's another connection, because there's a lot of ecology involved with this as well. And so to kind of capitalize on that and weave that into the story, I think would be great also for a local town to know about the ecology of the white oak. It's quite extensive. There's actually a white oak organization that does nothing but promote the growth of white oak trees. Very important in the lumber industry. And there are projects we talked about that could be woodworking projects. And that's where the Voc Tech schools came in, where we could maybe have everybody makes a commemorative bench or something, with the made out of white oak. So there's all kinds of interesting things we could do and promote at the local level. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it'll be something of real lasting significance that won't be that hard on us or, that expensive that we'd have to raise a lot of money for, and really could engage the local towns in a meaningful way. So, yeah.
A very small idea, but
yeah.
Of course, the charter oak, the whole point was to safeguard something in it.
Correct. Yep.
Time capsule with the tree, something like that.
That would be fun. Yes, exactly. What do you think, Tom? How about a time capsule?
I think a time capsule sounds wonderful. One of the things
Like
that
a
we,
barrel.
yeah, right.
Sort of barrel making, because there was so.
I think one of the things that we were talking about too, I mean, it's nice to learn that's the sort of prize model around incentivizing some municipalities has worked well, because we're potentially talking about having potentially students from the technical schools build, prizes that could be given to municipalities that more actively participated in this program. Digressing, I think a time capsule would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I think to Amherst's point, using a white oak barrel would seem sort of great, so.
Get the historic traits involved.
Yeah.
I think if we can find a way to like incorporate high school Future Farmers of America programs too, and kind of reach out to their VOAG programs, that could be something that we want to look into as well.
Great idea.
They can also probably, partner up the elementary schools, because I know the high school kids are probably be viewed as more of a role model, especially at that point. So maybe we can find a way to get like a, joint operation going there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, there's quite a few VOAG programs, what, 8 or 9?
A lot of them, yeah.
More, yeah.
And like they represent a bunch of different towns. Like I went to Rockville High School. I was in it for a year. There was kids from all over the state, like local towns stuff coming there as well. So it kind of incorporates more people than just that one town as well.
That's right. They're regional programs, right? Thanks. Yeah, good idea. Okay, well,
We
stay
can include
tuned.
it in red, white, and blue schools too, if there is some, like a education focus, the red, white, and blue schools.
Yeah.
Theme for this coming year is going to be around the 250th, which is for the common good.
Oh, yeah.
And so if there's like some kind of toolkit or packet, we can include it kind of as an example of one thing that they can, one
Right.
project they could do.
Do you know if there's a deadline associated with the Red, White, and Blue School Initiative? Like, is there a certain date by which we have to get that over to you? Or can we just sort of?
It could be running on a running basis, but like, I would say, by September would probably be great, but we could also roll it out
in the fall.
Really should have something by the fall, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had some sort of, even if we started with just packet with ideas
Right.
that they could draw from, and then connect with the folk tech schools and see how they can promote whatever we come up with. So I think our first job is probably to come up with a packet of information and ideas, and then see where it goes from there. Good. I'm excited about this project. I think this is something that could be a real lasting legacy for us. Okay, now, July 4th, the actual date, Cindy.
Briefly, but just to check in with everyone, I know it's getting a little warm. The air conditioners are very loud. Do we have preferences in terms of air conditioners on versus having to kind of shout at one another? We've got about another 50 minutes. So might be time for some air conditioning.
Let's pop it out a little bit longer. if we can.
Okay.
In fairness to folks online, I just, if that goes on, nobody's gonna hear.
Yeah, we tried to crank down the temperature before everybody got here, but it's a warm day. Okay, so July 4th, 2026, we're working with stakeholders in Hartford to create a schedule for the day, and we're hoping to have that for everybody at our next meeting in October. Along with what organization is kind of responsible for each piece of the day and how we'll kind of market it jointly as the state's 250th commemoration. We're hoping to begin the day in the morning with a ceremony in the Hall of Flags hosted by the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion. And then from there, we are hoping to continue with a recommitment to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence and involve all of the local committees in that. Have each of them send a representative to sign a document that is then kind of added to the archives for documenting the state at this point in time. We currently are leaving aside the idea of a parade. Given the logistics and the funding requirements for that, I don't think we can really pull it off. If something changes, we can put it back on the table. Just like I said, I think right now it's not within the realm of what we can do. Then we are working with Hartford First Night, who puts on Hartford Bonanza to do a bigger and more involved celebration in Bushnell Park that day. Generally, they've invited Hartford organizations to have a table and or tent at their Bonanza celebration. They are completely open to us inviting statewide affiliates, local committees to set up their tent and bring a table and kind of share what they're working with. Again, this is not at all something that we're looking to mandate, just an opportunity that we're presenting with people. They're working with the city of Hartford and Hartford organizations to have as many museums in the city open on that day, kind of get arts and culture on board with the idea of moving their day off from the 4th of July to like the 6th or 7th of July. And really have lots of places for people to get out of the heat, get inside, see an exhibit, do a fun activity. And then end the night with some concerts in Bushnell Park and some fireworks over the Capitol. So that is kind of the plan as we have it right now. We're scheduling a meeting with Hartford organizations for early August to really hammer down who is going to be responsible for each of these different parts and how we're going to move it forward jointly. I think one of the opportunities that we're really looking for are sponsors for all of this, because despite kind of toning it down, I think it still will be expensive and there will be a lot of, in particular, security needs around this. And also any opportunities to attract media sponsors to kind of cover this and make sure that there's lots of information out in the news and getting people to Hartford on that day. Any questions?
How are we doing on the language of the recommitment?
We've gotten the municipal proclamation out to municipalities. I think we are most likely going to take that as a template and then kind of expand and alter it, because that's really about municipalities proclaiming that they're participating in 250th commemorations. So I think we'll take that and kind of modify. We have time. We've got a year.
As long as it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness somewhere, we'll be fine.
I'll just kind of add this. I guess it's kind of a lofty idea, but I remember back during COVID when we were all stuck at home, Connecticut National Guard did a flyover over the whole state of Connecticut with C-130s. I don't know what the logistics would be, but if we can find a way to maybe coordinate that, especially if we can't do a parade, kind of just to, get something out there to everybody so they can all kind of see how far we've come. I think maybe that could be something cool we could look into.
That's great, yeah. I would imagine we could get who's in charge of that? Who knows?
International.
Military department.
It'd probably be out of the Springfield Westover. That's where the 130s are.
I like that idea, because I was trying to think about how, I think there are so many local activities
Yeah.
going on the 4th of
Yes,
July.
yeah.
Like every year, there are like monumental parades and
Yeah.
festivals. And so how do we kind of like unify the state
Right.
without having to have people come to Hartford, but, or into one place, but kind of unify.
Yes, you're right. I was kind of worried about that. We were talking about inviting towns to have tables, but then I realized they'll all be in their own towns, and there's so many parades. Do we know what day of the week?
It's a Saturday this year.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And
That's-
I'll say there's some local committees who are doing things on the 4th of July, some are the week before, some are the week after.
Yes, that's-
It's the usual wide range.
Yeah.
I really like that idea, and I'm also wondering about the Coast Guard's Eagle and maybe just sailing along the coast.
Oh,
I don't know if it'll be in New London. I don't know where it'll be, but maybe it's an opportunity to reach out and plan
I think they might be participating in,
all ships.
really?
Let's find out.
Yeah, but anything that moves is interesting. The trains, the boats,
Yeah.
anything that moves around.
Yeah.
I would, I'm just gonna echo Jason's, the recommitment thing. There's two ways to do it, as you know. One is you write it and the other is the writing it is the point. And I would just be a little bit thoughtful because I don't think we need to have everyone in the state recommit to like hating on King George,
Right.
which is the
That list of grievances.
or the merciless savages and all of that. Which isn't to say I just would be the specific language there is interesting. And it could be interesting to try to have conversations about what that common language is, even if it simply ends up being the preamble, which is probably what it ought to be.
That's what it ought to be.
I think that's the answer.
Yes.
But, thinking about what those words mean today. If that's a Connecticut public project or a Yukon project, I don't know, but there may be some kind of
Very.
programming around that.
There's been entire books written about the word liberty. I mean, for
Many,
example, in American history.
many books about, and I would say many wars and 250 years of development over fighting about those words in the preamble. I just think I don't know what exactly it is, but I think there's an opportunity there.
Mm.
And regardless, I don't think we should just recommit to the words of the Declaration. I think we should at least put the words that we are recommitting to in the text, because there's maybe only some that we want to emphasize in this context.
I think that's why we've always emphasized this idea of the ideals of the Declaration. So really knowing that this will be adjusted accordingly. But yeah.
It's my understanding that President Trump was interested in hosting all 50 states having pavilions at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Has there been any movement on that?
That's not happening anymore. There's now talk of like an expo almost at the National Mall. in July of 2026. We've heard anywhere from 2 weeks to July 1st through 3rd. There hasn't really been a lot of that's one of the things that state commissions are a little concerned about, because we still don't have any information about that. We've been told it's coming and there will be some kind of update, but we've heard it might be staffed, it might not be staffed, it might just be like exhibits that get put up there. So I don't have a lot to share other than there will be something, it'll be on the National Mall and it'll be close to the 4th of July. But beyond that, yeah, really don't know.
I hope it's the kind of thing we'll learn a little bit more about when we're in DC at the end.
I'm hoping, I'm hoping you guys will have more updates for a lot of this.
And it's the opportunity when they've got everybody gathered to sort of say, here's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
It's the moment.
Is there any more talk about a giant national fair in Iowa? That was what I heard.
Yeah, that's what he was just.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that what you're, yeah. the
So
Iowa, but
there's not a lot of talk about that in and of itself. That's been moved to the National Mall. There is talk about Patriot Games, and I don't know where that is going to be. And that will be bringing together, I believe, high school and collegiate athletes somewhere. I'm not sure if you know more. You're nodding.
I can probably look more into it, but it sounds like something that could be interesting. I'm surprised I don't know about that, to be honest with you, the amount of time I spent in sports. but-
I don't think there have been a lot of details released,
Okay.
just that it's an idea. So I think there are a lot of ideas that we've heard about, and we just don't have the details yet to really say how we can get involved, how other people around the state can get involved.
I would suggest that after you guys go to the meeting in a week or two, that you maybe write out a note to the commission members about, sort of an update. Because
Yeah.
before our next, because it's another quarter till our next meeting.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I think it probably,
That's great.
with that in mind, not to add more work onto our plates, it probably will merit a little bit more communication
Yeah.
in the coming year as things are tightening up and
Right.
happening with more frequency.
Right. Okay, thanks, Cindy. I think we'll move on. It's getting on in time. Subcommittee updates. So we'll start with governance. Ariane?
Yeah, just a quick update. We've all been moving along, reviewing the applicants for the affiliate program. We now have 120 affiliates, which is great, nearly halfway to the goal of 250 by July 4th of next year, which I think is completely doable if we all kind of pitch in and continue reaching out. I asked my intern Danielle Colbreth to kind of look into who the affiliates currently are. And I think it's no surprise, the majority are museums, historical societies, libraries. We also have 26 towns for the town 250th commissions on board. And we also kind of mapped it out so we can see geographically where they are. And I'm going to share that with Cindy and Rachel so that they can distribute it to all you guys. I think it's interesting to see kind of where the gaps are, where maybe we can go in and be more targeted on who and where we're reaching out. But yeah, I think we're around like 5 to 10 applications per month or so. So it's been steady, but I think we'll need to ramp it up a little bit more to reach our goal.
I'm wondering if we can maybe do some kind of announcement to the 750 organizations in our sort of email communications that we've funded to talk about the opportunity to become an affiliate.
Want to share some of the work you're doing with CLA?
Yes, so the Connecticut Library Association will be joining as an affiliate. We did not have a quorum at our last meeting, which is why I haven't gotten back to you. But we're also working with Cindy and Rachel to get some information sessions out to the greater library community. Have individual libraries join as affiliates and then get a better base work and game plan going for programming and information that libraries can have available closer to the 4th of next year.
questions about that, but I'll ask you afterwards. I don't want to take time now. Okay. Anyone else about governance? That was, thank you. Now community and organizational engagement.
Yes, like governance, we're kind of, I think we're engaged in fleshing out, if you're working on the affiliates, we've been working on the municipal contacts and ensuring that, what do we stand at in terms of towns now?
118.
118, okay. So, you know, we're getting there. I think that's one of the main things that we have been working on. Are there major updates from the committee itself?
Think so, I think.
Oh, there was something around the code of conduct. Is that something that we're talking about in this meeting?
Yeah,
Or
so we have started, so at the last committee meeting, we received a few different code of conducts from other organizations, I think, in an effort to kind of share an overarching idea of what is okay, what is not okay, especially as things are getting a little more contentious as we move forward. We are hoping to kind of circulate a draft with the commission in the coming weeks, but have just been kind of hemming and hawing over a couple of inclusions right now. But really, the gist of it is treat everybody respectfully, respect other people's opinions, and don't engage in any kind of harassing behavior across the board. So it's really, we're struggling a little bit with the language around some of that, to make sure that we are explicit about what is and isn't okay, but aren't overly prescriptive about what is and isn't okay. So, yeah.
I think the only thing other thing I'll mention on the Connecticut League of Museums side is we've been having some conversations with the Connecticut Veterans 250 group about when they are working on this Red War Trail and a number of other initiatives. And we've been working with them just to think a little bit more about how we can keep them involved in the commission and also do some coordinated stuff between the museums and veterans museums and sites, and some of the work that the VFW and the Legion are doing.
I have a question about the towns. When we say we have 118, can you give me some sense of who's left? Are those mostly small little towns or just kind of a weird?
Scattershot.
Really? Okay.
Is my understanding. We did a big outreach push after our last meeting to kind of, you know, reach out to some of the stragglers. You folks probably have the most up-to-date information on where that stands.
I don't think, for example, Stanford still has not.
I should look at that list and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something that's worth circulating to the entire commission rather than just community and organizational engagement to see if anybody has a personal contact in the town.
Right.
Where we can.
Maybe, let me just ask, I mean, we probably shouldn't spend time doing this now, but maybe just ask around the table, go online. It's online, right?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Yeah,
It
there it
is.
is. And,
Yeah, we've got it up here. It's a little hard to see.
are the green ones the ones that are still not?
Yep.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
The red ones are the ones
there's
who
some
have
pictures.
submitted, but it really is a mix. We've
Yeah.
also shared with legislators who have made pushes in some towns. Some more successfully than others. I know West Haven in particular, the legislator is very excited for them to get involved and we keep not hearing from the town. So that's one of the like really specific examples I know of. But it's mixed.
And
Very.
every time we do a push, like a few more come in. So I think that, you know, our committee will continue to work with Cindy and Rachel on that, but I think I do think it's a good idea for commissioners to individually go. And if you have a contact in that town, there's some template emails that we can share out for, here's what we're doing. We ask you to contact, you know, Cindy and Rachel basically, and get yourselves on the map.
There's still examples. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, but I've had conversations with some folks that have said we have a local commission that hasn't been reported
Yes.
officially to us. I think we've closed some of those
London and
gaps.
Groton, yeah, I
Yeah,
think they're coming
Chester
in.
was one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I know we've closed a lot of gaps, but I'm just wondering if there's some that are just sort of nascent and haven't.
yeah, like Hartford was one for a while that we were working with the Hartford groups, but they still hadn't officially given us a name, so they're on the map.
Well,
Yeah,
They shouldn't be anymore because they have now hired that we were waiting for them to hire the arts and
Right.
culture person.
yeah, but that I think was like a year of waiting, and so
Oh,
now
yeah.
they're.
Oh, now they're in pretty, oh. okay,
Yeah.
I thought you meant.
And I think there are lots of examples like that of we've been hearing and waiting and hearing, and now they're in. So now the ones that we haven't heard from are really ones that have been quite quiet.
Yeah, that gives us all a little bit of work on there. All right, next, Steve Armstrong, education.
Yeah, we've appropriately, I think, narrowed our efforts to K-12 education. I think we were going to try to go the university route, but that proved challenging. We were originally going to go to try to work with boys clubs and girls clubs and groups like that. That also proved challenging. So I think really where we can do the most good is with the K-12 world. So that's what we're working with. A couple things we're doing, we're providing educational materials to teachers. There's many history, social studies teachers and all kinds of teachers that don't teach this topic in their classroom, but we want them to be able to engage with it in their classroom. So we're sort of producing a America 251 on 101 history guide for teachers that may not be familiar with that topic. And we're actually having a webinar next week, next Thursday, to introduce this to teachers. So that's one thing we're doing. Another thing we're doing, we're going to encourage research by local at schools by individual students or classes on America 250 related themes. We're still working on getting a platform to effectively put that material on. Third thing, the Ken Burns series that's in November, I believe November 18th is the kickoff for that. We're going to do a webinar series for teachers related to that and to assist them to use that. And I'm going to be reaching out to some experts in the state perhaps that would help at least guide the putting that together. Fourth thing.
Staring at you there, Andy.
I thought he was looking somewhere behind me.
No, it was actually, I'm just happy to be reading that nice.
It's the shirt. I know everyone's been.
Oh, it is the
about that.
shirt,
Yeah,
the shirt.
That's new.
That's what it is. We're going to be in Amherst. I'm going to reach out for you from assistance on this. Some ways we're going to, some suggestions to schools on how they can reach out to historical societies and museums on this, and to museums on how they can reach out to schools. So that will be going out in the fall as well. As Ariane said, this is going to be a major theme for Red, White, and Blue this year. And so that will go. And we're doing we're going to do a session at the Connecticut Council for the Social Studies Fall Conference on America 2. So that's, I think we're doing, but I felt kind of bad because we thought the university thing would be, but we just couldn't find a way to get that. So rather than struggle along with it, I think go to the places where we can do the most.
Steve, on the Ken Burns thing, I know that the Connecticut Vets 250 group is also looking to use that as an opportunity. So you might reach out to Christine Pitsley about what they're doing around the Ken Burns. Right. Yeah.
That's good, Steve. Okay. And marketing, Rob.
I'll just make a few introductory comments and then leave it to Cindy to sort of fill in the gaps. The marketing committee met a week or so ago. There was a lot of conversation about funding and where things stand, and I think there was a lot of time given to helping members of the committee to get a sense of the bigger picture, and Jason was really very helpful with that. Anthony was there from the Department of Tourism. We had a discussion, sort of brainstormed about potential sponsors, and I think that was a fruitful discussion. My biggest takeaway was Felicia Lindau from Adams and Knight had emphasized that the CT Visit website is ready to go, needs to be populated with information. And so since there is a lack of funding for marketing, I think that partnering with the Department of Tourism makes great sense, and utilizing their website and their reach that they have with their website is going to be important for a lot of organizations to be able to plug into. But with that, Cindy, if you, Rachel, or Jason have other comments since you were there too, please feel free to share them with the rest of the commission.
Yeah, I think overall, Rob, that's great. I think the CT Visit is really our biggest opportunity, both in terms of visibility and the potential and for sponsorships of CT Visit that can help get marketing dollars in the door and funding for some of the 250th work we're looking to do. I think Anthony is really excited about the idea of a trail. And I think the question is whether we promote kind of the Revolutionary War Trail that our veteran friends are working on, or if we take an approach that includes a little more time, less focused on just the Revolutionary War, more focused on the last 250 years of history here in Connecticut, and more of a thematic approach with the commission's themes. So we're working through what that might look like. At the end of the day, he feels that we shouldn't have more than at the very most 50 sites on the trail, which curating that list down from all of the great places around the state has been really challenging. We sit down, start brainstorming, all of a sudden it's 100 places. So I think that's our bigger challenge and what we'll be working on, so that hopefully in October we have something more.
You thought of this already, I know, but like, have you thought about how like the Connecticut History Network, and then you can pick your trails through it that light up? There's the Revolutionary War version, but there's the whatever, the immigrant version, or
different itineraries.
different, yeah, exactly. So there, and it doesn't mean, you know, one place can be on several of those, but you can just imagine.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of different.
I'm sure you have, yeah.
Iterations of this, and I think it's still coming together.
So every trail can only have 10, but it could be from a list that everybody is on.
Yeah. And this will all be sort of, I don't think we touched on it, but this will all have a dedicated page on CT Visit for the 250. It will be sort of like this omnibus page that sort of links out to all the different initiatives and sites, restaurants, and so on.
So it's like a 250 layer on CT Visit.
Yeah.
Right.
And they've built, I forget what they're calling it, more or less a mini site within CT Visit that is completely branded to the 250th.
You tell Anthony there needs to be 250 places on it, and then the trails can have 10 each, or 13. Give a nice American number.
We started with that idea. Got cut down to 50. And probably cut down even more once we get to the end of it.
There will be opportunities to link out in different ways to others.
Well, that sounds great. I like the trail idea.
And actually, we did create a form to kind of start taking other ideas. I think that we have lots of ideas, but a way for people to nominate sites, and we'll be sharing that out more widely in the coming days.
Cindy, boy, you've been busy. And you and Rachel.
I was gonna say.
No, good work. Okay, unless there are any other new business ideas or comments, I think we'll move to the public comment now. Is there anyone here from the public that wants to speak?
Am I?
Come on.
I know we're okay. Should I get near a speaker here?
Yeah,
Yes,
you can
you
kind of
should,
stand in one of
yes.
the corners, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm Aaron Markovich. You may have known me in past lives, but currently I'm the Economic and Community Development Director for the town of Enfield, which oversees our America 250 Commission. We recently finished our logo, which is based on a drum.
Holly, want to go outside?
What? I'm sorry, who's?
No, I think somebody's mic got picked up
Somebody's
by
picked up.
accident.
And that is based on Thomas Abbey, who sounded the drum after word came that Lexington and Concord had started. And he drummed everybody out of their Wednesday lecture or their Thursday lecture. It was in the church, and got everybody rallied and to head off to the revolution. So we're using that same idea of a call to action. We have Enfield is very veterans focused. So we have a lot of interest about that. We have 3 keystone events. One will be, technically it's the 251st anniversary of Thomas Abbey at the monument, which is on Enfield Street, Route 5. If you've not seen it, is a very large marble statue that was commissioned in 1915. And we're working now to get it cleaned, redone, get the whole of the monument area was designed by McKim, Mead and White, so massively important architecture firm. So there's a variety of things going on with that. Our July 4th in town is held the week after July 4th. We're hoping that they made enough money this year that they'll be able to do it again next year, and we'll add things to that. And then Enfield is also the home of the first Purple Heart. It wasn't a Purple Heart yet. It was precursor to the Purple Heart, and that was Elijah Churchill, who was in Enfield. So we have some kind of unique connections that we're hoping to play on. I just had a few quick questions. I was taking lots of notes because our 250 commission meeting is tomorrow night. There was a discussion about the State Fair initiative, and then kind of combined with this New England effort. Has anybody reached out to the Eastern States Exposition, the Big E, and what they might be able to do there next year is kind of number one. And the other one that you all were talking about, contributions and stuff. I know that the defense industry in the state is huge. And if you haven't touched base with Advanced CT, they may be in a side conversation that we not thought about, but they're focused on that manufacturing. And we just deal with that a lot from the economic development standpoint, manufacturing and stuff, and they may be interested in contributing. So I just wanted to throw out those 2 particular ideas. We did participate in the Give 250. Our problem is that because the July 4th is after the July 4th, our timing was weird. There's a variety of issues. So I'm glad to hear that there will be another effort at it. If our particular local 250, just because of my experience and background in preservation and humanities and history, can be helpful to the commission. I know that your staff knows that, but please put Enfield to work for you. We'll step up and do our part. Okay.
Thank you so much. That's tremendous.
Cindy can probably address the Big E.
Yeah, I'll mention, so the Big E has been tagged as the quote unquote state fair for all of the New England states. I don't actually know if the state is aware of this. We were made aware of it from Rhode Island. Yeah, but I know America 250 will have a vendor booth there, and they will be doing some outreach there. So I think there are conversations around how we can work with our state tourism offices to get our more local 250th efforts to be part of the Biggie as well. And that's an ongoing conversation.
This is homework for us and not Tom.
Right, yeah. Exactly, but just more of a FYI.
Okay, that was great, very informative, and congratulations on doing all that work in Enfield. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, anybody else want to speak? No, not this time.
Anybody online?
Okay. Anyone online? No? Okay. Well, look at that. We're a little bit early, but I'm willing to call it a day. unless anyone has anything else for the good of the order. A very informative meeting. As Jason suggested, perhaps we'll be meeting more often, I think, in the next, we haven't talked about this, but it seems like quarterly might not be enough pretty soon. So starting in the fall, we might think about doing monthly meetings.
We can certainly communicate more and address
Yeah.
on an ad hoc.
Yeah,
basis.
even if we do just Zoom meetings in between, I think it would be useful because I feel like this was a very full agenda and a lot's been going on, and I think a lot more will be going on. So let's kind of think about that and sort of plan for that, but probably not in person every month, but at least a Zoom. Yeah.
And then, we will turn on the air conditioner if folks
Yes.
want to mingle and chat with one another. But everybody here is also invited to participate in a tour with Manchester Historical Society. Originally at noon. I think we can push it a little earlier if folks are interested, but just a heads up that that's an opportunity.
Right. And our next meeting, until further notice, is October 15th. Plan ahead. We don't know where it will be. We've been having these meetings at different venues around the state, so it'll probably be a different one.
Like, we might go back to the Hartford area, kind of a little more central location for the next one. We haven't been back in Hartford for a little while.
All right, thank you, everyone, and for all your contributions, and we may be calling on some of you to participate in some of these activities, but if you haven't been involved and you want to be, let either Jason and I know, and we'll get you plugged into something. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Do I
everyone.
have a motion to adjourn? Oh, in a second. Okay, great. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, nice meeting you.